Andre Stein is the co-CEO of Eve Air Mobility. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me here. Always a pleasure.
Oh, thank you. And so Eve has had some exciting news this week. Let's start out with the suppliers. You announced 3 suppliers, right?
That's correct. And in an industry where so often you hear about delays and postponing dates, I'm glad to say that we've done that on schedule. And these are the critical suppliers in terms of the critical path towards entering service, which compromise the power unit. So it's the motors, the batteries, and the propellers. And all great suppliers, great partners. We have been working with potential candidates for years now. Something you've learned throughout the program developments, we need to engage early and mature the discussion. And that takes years often. So we have been doing that. And we define Nidec Aerospace as our motor supplier for entering service. And it's actually a JV between Nidec, which is the largest electrical motor manufacturer, with Embraer. So it's a combination of a lot of know-how in terms of electrical motors and aerospace. So really happy about it. For the energy storage system, it's BAE Systems. That, again, they have a lot of experience in aerospace, but also they have been building batteries for autobuses for quite a while and at large scale as well. So, again, a great combination. And Duck Propellers, which is a traditional player in the aerospace, 25 years of experience developing propellers for small aircraft. That gives us the confidence to keep maturing the product, to detail the interface of the systems, moving ahead with the program as expected, and as I said, not very common in this industry on schedule.
And speaking of schedules, we announced, I guess, that you're going to be starting to build the first prototype the second half of this year. Can you tell us more about it?
Sure, that's what I meant about maturing, right? We have been doing building blocks and designing these aircraft, learning the building blocks and maturing the different aspects. An example of that, like wind tunnel tests, some of them are things we've been doing a lot and relying on experience to do that, like wind tunnel tests, something we do in the industry. The latest tests we've done, we've announced just about a month ago, and sharp eyes probably have noticed that it is the model we are showing now, the same configuration. And on top of that, we are adding some other building blocks. Like we are using a big truck with the propellers on top so we can understand the transition on ground without spending years and hundreds of millions of dollars before or sooner than what you should. With that understanding of the building blocks, of the physics behind it, of the weight of the aircraft, of the supplier selection, we can start building a prototype that's more mature, more representative of what the aircraft is, without minimizing the risk of going back a few steps and maybe a couple of years later when it's much more expensive to return.
Sounds good. And then what is the production and certification status? 27, 28?
We are talking about 2026, and we are sticking to that date so far. So no delays to announce. It's the fact that we were able to reach that really critical milestone of the supplier selection now put us in a good perspective on that. Our path towards certification, it is using ANAC, that's the Brazilian certification organization, as a primary certification organization, validating that in FAA, certifying on EASA and other parts around the world as well. Good news on that front too. Last week, ANAC announced the partnership with EASA. They signed the collaboration, so that put us on the right track. In previous programs, we had, in particular, like our Embraer latest commercial jet, we had the certification of ANAC, FAA, and EASA in the same day.
Yep.
Right. I'm not saying that you're going to have it on the same day, but it's good to be on track on that too.
Good to have it harmonized. And this week, Eve also announced 3 contracts on Tuesday, right? Or Wednesday?
Actually, we announced 4 contracts.
Oops, I'm behind.
We got 3 eVTOL contracts and 1 service and support contract as well. We've announced Videro 0, as with an order to up to 50 eVTOLs. And with Visitez Zero, one interesting point is that together with them, that's going to help us understanding the needs of that particular type of weather. How is to operate in cold weather? So beyond purely the order, we're going to be collaborating on research to understand how we can adapt electrical vehicles, not only our own VTOL, but how electrical vehicles can be adapted for that type of conditions. It's really interesting. And bring us also, put us in partnership, one of the countries that has been pushing the hardest for sustainability. Really proud of that. We had announced a collaboration with Visitez last year on the COP26. That was, at that point, an MOU, a collaboration to try to understand the needs. And it's a slightly different market. There is not that much traffic going on Oslo, but a lot of smaller communities around and things you can do with a eVTOL. So understanding that type of operation, it's a great thing for us. That was one. I had another lessor as a partner with NAC. So up to 30 eVTOLs with NAC. It's our third leasing company. In a world that a lot of companies want to be asset light, having that financial solution as part of our portfolio, it's a great news as well. And it's a great partner. It has been a partner of the Embraer Group for a while. And another vote of confidence that we are doing the right thing, the right product. We've disclosed, and this to add to our backlog, so we have today 2,850 orders for eVTOLs. That's by far the largest number in the industry, very diversified. We have big airlines like United Airlines, regional airlines like SkyWest, Republic, like Visitez Zero now. We got like Kenya Airways, so quite spread around the globe. We got helicopter operators, large helicopter operators, new helicopter operators, Bristol, Halo, Helisul in Brazil, which we did announce a new contract with them too. We have ride-sharing apps. We have Blade, and we've announced an extension of our partnership with Blade to Europe as well. We announced that last Monday. So that's now it's a memorandum of understanding to understand the operation here in Europe. We had already an order from Blade US and from Blade India, and now we are extending collaboration of Blade Europe, which is great news too. So we have this very diversified portfolio of customers, and now we are adding Voir. We are disclosing Voir. We have signed with them some time ago the order of 70 eVTOLs. That's for Brazil. And they will be focused on southern Brazil in particular. And with Helisul that I just mentioned, and that was the fourth contract, we've signed a partnership for service and support. So that's another big part of our portfolio. There's a lot of focus often on the aircraft aspect, but we are doing so much more than that in terms of creating a full portfolio of service solutions as well for urban air mobility, relying a lot on existing infrastructure from Embraer Group, so we can have MROs and so on in the network already that do exist, that you have access to, and that discussion, it's really, really, really good. And with Helisul, we also announced their focus cities. We are not calling them launch cities necessarily, because there is still some time to decide which one would be the launch city. But we've announced United in San Francisco last week, and now we've announced Helisul in Rio in Brazil as one of our focus cities, where you're going to be doing more work to really clear the path toward entering service.
So many follow-up questions. Cold weather operations, concept of operations, your city pairs. So let's do, just out of curiosity, the cold weather, the Visitez, like what are you going to have to do to make sure that those electric aircraft work in cold, snowy climates?
That's exactly what I mean on understanding that well, right? So we don't have a solution ready to go now. That's the point. Right. But rather than sit back in the office and figure it out by ourselves, we do believe a lot in collaboration. Visitez has a lot of technical expertise. They were the launch customer for the E-Jets, E2 for a reason. They have a lot of technical know-how, great base there, a lot of understanding of the type of conditions. There is clearly a need there. So that's how we're going to end up with a solution.
I want to talk about the concept of operations, but before we do that, yesterday there was a fantastic. How many of you were here for the airspace management panel? Very good. Eve has completed its urban air mobility air traffic management prototype recently. Can you talk about what that is and why that's so important?
That's correct. So when I'm talking about this whole infrastructure, this whole ecosystem for urban air mobility, that's a crucial aspect. We need not only to allow for the industry to scale in a safe way, so air traffic management, it's a great part of it. In a city like Paris, for example, we expected a market of up to 450 eVTOLs in a mature market. That's a lot of things flying in the sky. So we need to assure that we can scale to that point in a safe way. But before that, we also need to allow for efficiency. We need to understand what's the most efficient way to fly around the city. And when we're talking about concept of operations, that's part of it. Understanding how this operation going to be, designing the software for air traffic management based on that, working together with partners to apply, deploy the software. Like we are doing with the aircraft, we rely on a lot of know-how inside the Embraer group to develop the aircraft. We also have that expertise inside the group. All the air traffic management software that controls the air traffic in Brazil was developed from ATEC, which is another company on the group. You are using that know-how to develop something that bespoke for urban air mobility. What I mean by that? Today, you fly a helicopter, you often take off, you get off the ground, and then you move to the FATO, to where you're actually going to take off, and you hover there, and then you ask for permission to go ahead, hovering, wasting energy, making noise, and then you move. And then if there is something, some unexpected thing on the way, or some expected thing, still you need to enter in contact again, ask for permission to move, and wait, or deviate, and waste energy again. So there's going to be a more efficient way to do it. And some of the simulations we've done of helicopters were meant to help us to understand where the pain points are. To give you an example, we flown a helicopter in Chicago for 3 weeks, and I can talk more about it. But one of the points, we would take off in Chicago downtown, start flying, and we were crossing Chicago Midway Airport airspace. And probably around 3 minutes after taking off, then we would ask the flight controllers, oh, can I pass over? And then they, maybe yes, maybe no, and I need to go around it. 3 minutes after, so you know before you are taking off if you have some issue there or not. You can plan for that. And if you do, it becomes much more efficient. You take off, you go, and hopefully you go in a straight line as well, rather than I need to follow a certain path, because the eVTOLs, they are at a much higher safety level than general aircraft, right? They do require higher safety standards exactly because you expect this high volume. And they're much quieter when they're flying, so we can think about optimizing the routes as well, the corridors, taking that in consideration together with the air traffic management system.
Well, speaking of those corridors and operations, the last session we were talking about batteries and charging. What is your plan for a network of charging stations, or how are you going to handle that?
We cannot do everything by ourselves, and you don't plan to. So when you are talking about what's going to be the launch city with the operator, with our customer, part of it is to be the catalyst for that to happen, to bring the infrastructure partners. A couple of months ago, we had our first infrastructure summit in North America, where we brought together energy providers, big ones. We brought operators, our customers in North America. We brought infrastructure players. We have that will be designing and owning the real estate on the vertiport. We brought all these peers together to discuss that ground operation, what is necessary, what the distance the charger needs to be from the vehicle, the distance from the grid. Is the grid capable of addressing the needs? Do you need cooling at charging? All that together with our partners. And as we are working in a specific focus city, that's part of discussion. So now with United and San Francisco, we have a much more specific target to discuss that, a much more clear, and where the vertiports will be. We need to understand the origin destination, where the passengers are coming from, where the demand is. Sometimes I hear a lot about, oh, you can just let's use the existing infrastructure. Yes, if they match the demand, but you're not flying someplace just because there is infrastructure there, right? So overlaying that, oh, this is demand. That's the actual demand. That's where people want to go. That's where people is coming from to go to that place. Overlaying that, okay, I can rely on some existing infrastructure if that's the case. No, I'm gonna need to build something new, but I don't necessarily not in the first year. Could be in the second year, third year. Oh, I can use a slab of concrete, and that's it. And put a charger there. I don't necessarily need an FBO or a building. And that different solutions between a vert stop, if you want to call it, like a simple one that doesn't have anything, or a full vert hub with several different landing spots. These will be different infrastructure, but we don't need neither to hope for it or to do everything ourselves. What you need is to bring the partners together and design that and create a very clear roadmap towards entering service that goes very much beyond the aircraft or just the aircraft, right? We need to really set up what is needed in terms of infrastructure, if it's needed for the traffic management, from the real estate aspect, from what's going to be there on the vertiport, from what type of energy is going to be there, and so on.
Thank you. You've conducted a lot of different concept of operations around the world. Australia, Brazil, Chicago that you just mentioned. What are some of the key similarities and differences between the different geographies?
So the point of doing the exercise that there will be difference, right? There are different regulations in terms of airspace, for example. And these different concepts of operation, they did touch different aspects. They were not all the same, but the idea is to create a blueprint that more and more you can scale and replicate. So we work in Japan, just to give you one example that you mentioned, with a strong focus on the air traffic management aspect. So that you can design, can understand the rules and regulations for aerospace, design our software based on that as well, how we can optimize that, enhance the performance. In other places like Chicago, we are actually flying a helicopter, not by ourselves, with partners. Blade was the partner there, but also United, Republic, SkyWest were all partners in that operation to understand that, plus user journey, what's the user experience, how it's going to be for the user to come from the ground transport to the vehicle. Does it need to pass through security screening or not? What type of security screening? Do you need a portal? Someone with a wand can do the screening. How does the authority in the airport takes that in consideration? Can I do particular for the airport shuttle, that's one of the missions, can I do my security screening beforehand? And can I start discussing that now with the airport? All right. And in Chicago, we've done 2 different routes with 3 very different types of vertiports. One was an existing FBO that has a building, that has a lot of infrastructure there already. The other one, there was just a container where you had the vertiport. The third one was basically a parking lot with nothing at all. And again, we won't be doing the vertiports ourselves, but we brought our partners to understand that, see what you need in the aircraft on the eVTOL. So how I can build a better eVTOL to make sure it's easy for the passenger to get in and out, for example, but also what type of ground support equipment I can add to that could help this operation expedite the thing, keep costs low, enhance the user experience. In Rio, we've flown a helicopter for a month, and then it was the airport shuttle case. We were flying from the west side of town to the international airport, landing airside. It was a new route as well, so it wasn't an existing corridor. It was designed specifically to test for urban air mobility operations, so it was a much more straight route than the usual one. And that again, the passengers were doing the security screening in the airport, but through another gate. So that did it make it much faster than usual. They didn't need to get out of the airport and in again either. And that help again understanding the user experience, how it would be this vertical aircraft landing in an airport that has commercial operations, how we have an umbrella that can cover for that and optimize both operations. They are both transport operations, so there are passengers coming in and out of them. It is a public service in both cases. We got or in Chicago, just going back to Chicago, we had the helicopter, but also had a partner with a drone company, with Speedbird. That we had them there, and they took off from the same region. And the point is how we can have something in terms of air traffic management that can combine these things as well and assure we are operating in a very safe way in airspace that's shared by eVTOLs. All type of eVTOLs is a very agnostic approach. Existing aircraft, helicopters, commercial jetliners, drones. Even though drones might fly, they do fly in a lower level, but they still land. Both things still land. So still there is some common ground there that we need to understand.
That sounds good. I had the privilege of being able to go on one of the Chicago proving runs, and we did like fly by Midway, and it was actually very cool to just see the integration of the airspace. But Eve does have a stand here, and you have a vehicle out on the static, and I just learned this morning you have something like a goggles that you can.
Oh yeah, that's a very fun experience. Our vehicle is that way. Okay. That's another guy.
Yeah.
We have our cabin mock-up over there. And what we're combining is kind of augmented reality, so have virtual experience. You can sit down inside the physical mock-up, put your goggles, and actually get the feeling of flying, right? We have the same experience there, close to the static display, where also can see a great Embraer aircraft on there. But it's right here. I invite you all to try. And we are using that not only as a marketing tool, right? Our mock-up have been moving this mock-up around. First time we show it to customers was in the first advisory board we had last year, on March last year, to collect input. So it is a development tool as much as a marketing tool. So you keep on improving on it, and you keep really assuring you are creating a eVTOL that's bespoke for the mission. What is the best equipment for user experience, for accessibility? That's a very important driver for us as well. So we are keeping it low to the ground, assuring that's easy to get in and out. So we had a lot of trials, bringing in the different types of users. On other mock-ups we have in wheelchairs of some visual impairment to assure that you might have the right cues and the right mechanism. So we keep on improving on that one too, until we have a product that it's not only great for user experience, but also it's easy to maintain, easy to use from an operator's point of view. We want something that's simple, that's light, but that gives you that great experience.
So the previous session, Ed Epler from Beta had mentioned that the maintenance costs are expecting to be significantly lower. Can you give us any metrics or expectations for maintenance costs?
It is expected to be significantly lower. It's not a very high bar to start with when you look at the helicopters. Right. They are very complex machines. Turbines are very complex. One of the things that we really love about electrical aviation, and one of the reasons why you start looking at that, it's exactly the simplicity of it. Electrical motors, they are small, they are simple. There are no moving parts. So we have one part that's fixed with the fuselage, another part that's fixed in the propeller, and that's it. So they're much easier and much lower cost than maintain than a turbine. When you add in a helicopter and have like cyclical collective controls, the pitch variation, that makes it more and more complex. Particularly in our case, we went even further in assuring that we're keeping it simple. So. I often say that. And with this crowd here, I know that they don't need to go on that. Everybody knows that that's not an electric helicopter. It's a new type of vehicle, but often with the common public, I need to explain that often. It's not an electric helicopter. It's something new, and takes off vertically using 8 rotors in our case. and the pusher to move forward, and you can turn that off, and you avoid moving parts with that. We have a lift plus cruise design with that, so no tilt. That keeps it simple. That can reduce a lot of the operational costs, particularly the maintenance costs. Also increase the reliability. All in all, when you compare with an equivalent helicopter, and when I say equivalent, like to do the type of missions, it's got to be a twin turbine helicopter to assure a similar, at least, level of safety in terms of volume. To have like very large scale operations we're looking for in urban air mobility, you can reduce, and particularly on the long term, the unit costs up to 6 times, right? But even at the entrance service, there is a clear difference there in maintenance costs. Again, very easy, very simple to maintain. And also on what is the biggest cost of aviation today, it's fuel, right? So being electric, beyond being much more sustainable, also address the highest cost in aviation today, that's fuel. That's how we get that disruptive cost compared to the helicopter. And with that mindset of keeping simple on design for maintainability, of having a very mature, that's another very important point, a very mature process on the suppliers discussion, on our partners, so we can assure we are all contributing to keep that cost down in terms of maintenance. We really see ourselves as the most competitive eVTOL in the segment in terms of unit costs.
So cost is important, and in previous discussions here at the Paris Air Mobility, it was also talking about, this really needs to be transportation for the masses. It can't be, too expensive. It can't only be for the rich. And when we were at the Farnborough Air Show last year, Eve had just rolled out its interior. One thing that really struck me, and I want to see if this is still true, you wanted to make sure that whether you're in a wheelchair or a medical, that you could easily get into, the interior. Has that changed much in the last year?
It's still true. So as I said, that's one of our big drivers. Keep it lower to the ground. Yep. That was one of the decisions. We do have a few patents. Even if you see here the little lip on the seat, that the reason that why is that, it's that it's easier to move from a wheelchair in with that, or even if you're not, just have a bad knee, it's easy to slide yourself in. There are improvements, so we are looking at on that. We had like the cargo, the luggage going inside, but then talking about operations with that could hit the thing or make the interior more complex or break things. We moved that to the back. The cargo compartment, it's in the back now, to make it easier. Again, bespoke solution for urban air mobility. That's one of the great use cases, to go back and forth to the airport. So we gotta be able to bring your luggage with you. And in terms of accessibility, we keep on working with potential users on that to understand. We are right now going of the selection of the suppliers for interior and seats, but with all that information, allow us to really to enforce that as we are selecting the actual seats that are going to go on the aircraft.
So when are you going to be announcing the seat manufacturer?
This year.
Okay.
I'm not giving you an exact date. Oh. No.
I'm a journalist, I have to ask.
No, I know that you don't have to ask. But at one point, we take that very seriously. So that's why you are able to say that we are on schedule as well. I mean, we are not doing that for show. We are not doing, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, into that. We really take it, and we do a mature process. So we want to assure we do have the right choice at the right moment, with the right level of maturity when you're selecting. We have been engaging with different aspects of it and suppliers for, as I said, for years now. Exchanging notes, understanding, and using this again as a tool for the development and really to refine the requirements for that. That's my one cool aspect that I forgot to mention. You were asking about other things, like once you get in and out, you need to have, and that is part of the discussion of as we are selecting the details and detailing it further. We need to have like both visual cues and auditory cues to get in and out. I mean, if you you are visual impaired,
yep.
you need to have something that you can hear that let you know what you need to do on LCR getting in and out. That's another little thing that could help a lot to be more inclusive. But we are going through that discussion right now with the suppliers.
Sounds good. Well, stay tuned. We've run out of time, but I wanted to thank you all for being here. Thanks to the Paris Air Show for working with us and having this beautiful space. Andre, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. And we have one more session right after this that my colleague Graham will be moderating, so stay tuned.